Hello, I'm Patryk Pawlak. I'm a part-time professor at the Robert Schuman Center for Advanced Studies here at the European University Institute in Florence. And today we have, for a conversation about open global internet and digital authoritarianism, we have Masutane, who is a policy fellow at the School of Transnational Governance. So welcome, Masutane, and thanks for agreeing to talk to us. I'd like to start with a very general question to familiarize our viewers with how researching digital authoritarianism and digital transformation looks in the African context and on the continent. What are some of the key things you think people should know when it comes to researching this topic in Africa?
Thank you, Patryk, and thank you for inviting me. So digital transformation has become very important and topical in Africa. As you know, the African continent, we've missed other industrialization stages previously, so we don't want to miss this one of the digital transformation. So it's become so important that we see it as a solution to transforming our economies and also just facilitating inclusivity within a community. As you know, Africa has countries that are some of the most divided in the world today, right? So we are trying to even use digital transformation to bridge that gap. But it's a very fast evolving space, the digital one. So it's really not very easy to keep up, right? But first, we need to understand the digital environment. We also need to keep up with the latest trends in digital transformation, including digital authoritarianism, as we are speaking about here right now. And I feel like maybe in our excitement to digitize our government systems and also just to keep up with the world, we are missing some of the critical steps, such as critically examining issues of data privacy and also identifying cyber security threats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think it goes in both ways, right? Because when we talk about digital transformation in Africa, most of the people think of Africa as being the recipient of capacity building or different technologies, but at the same time, the continent is quite dynamic in terms of developing new tools. If you look at Kenya and the payment systems with M-Pesa and so on, they are quite common on the continent and not necessarily that common in the European context, where you sometimes have to pay with cash, right? So I think we have to sort of look at that from both ways. And you have flagged this idea and the concept of potentially missed opportunity when it comes to digital transformation, but we also know from other contexts and other regions that yes, it's an opportunity, but at the same time there is a certain risk that is attached to the digital transformation, right? So I'd like to get your view on something that really comes up in the policy discussions quite often, which is this sort of a trade-off between the speed of digital transformation, but at the same time the sustainability and let's say inclusivity and openness of different solutions that are being adopted. Governments in Africa would argue, we have to take technology no matter where it comes from, just to ensure that we move in fast. How do you think can we sort of reconcile this policy objective of development and sustainability and security at the same time?
I think that is a very, very important question because, technology is also a human right issue, right? So I think maybe, yes, Africa wants to keep up with the world. We want to also develop digitally, but I think now we are waking up more and more to the fact that not everyone has our best intentions at heart. And also we have to look at technology as well as a business, right? People are developing solutions and then they are presenting them to Africa as the solutions of the solution. But because we've also just been so eager to leapfrog our on digital space, we have not really paid attention to the risks that are coming up. So I feel like maybe we need to capacitate researchers on the African continent who are able to understand the context, right, of Africa. who are able to also lead projects around digital transformation, that are able to analyze the policies that we have in place for their applicability on the ground, and also able to make recommendations to our governments on what, you know, the best practices. Not to say we are adapting research that is done, but we are also just adapting it in our own context. We are looking at the mistakes that were done elsewhere and also just adapting it to our to the African context.
So let's talk about this regional context and the need for contextualization. What are, in your view, three main issues in the research approaches, advocacy, policy design, when we talk about researching the concepts like digital authoritarianism, for instance, in Africa?
Okay, I think for me it goes back, the main issue being the context, right? Getting the context right, and then having the right people who understand the context, and then developing like the research framework has to be based on that. And also I feel like that also then informs our advocacy approaches as well, based on what the right context. And I want to give an example of one of the countries, I don't want to mention the name, where recently the country has been doing their best to try and digitize their social development payment system, like for by the government. And what happened there is that they introduced a system that was welcomed at the height of COVID-19. So really these initiatives were seen as a step in the right direction on our continent, because we were seeing it as a way to facilitate payment for people that need it the most without risking them getting exposed to COVID-19. And we didn't really, as the media and civil society, we didn't really ask the right questions then, not because we didn't want to ask the questions, we didn't have the background, the capacity, and the digital literacy to know what kind of questions to ask and what issues come up with initiatives like this. What ended up happening, and it was exposed this year, was that there was millions of people's information was exposed to misuse and data fraud. And we don't know whether it was government's intentional weakening of the encryption, or because even their response is not convincing that it was anything else, right? But we also didn't even know enough to engage them on that one. And whatever the intention, I feel like if we had been more proactive in our advocacy, we would have picked up some of these issues before they develop. We could have anticipated the challenges that come with digitization. And so I feel like maybe we just need the research in the right context that informs our policy designs as well as our advocacy efforts. And I don't think it's too late to do that now.
Yeah, so what you're describing, we could say, is really this multi-stakeholder approach to making the policies about digital transformation and ensuring that different stakeholder groups are part of the conversation. So we are here at the Research Institute in Florence, and I was wondering, you've mentioned the question and the issue of incapacitating researchers in the African context, but the same is true for Latin America or
Yes.
Asia Pacific. What do you think could be concrete steps to exactly make this sort of transfer of knowledge, but also the expertise, and ensuring that exactly we have these bottom-up approaches coming really from the region to researching this phenomena, rather than just copy-pasting from other parts? What would be some of your recommendations for this to materialize?
I think at a start, conferences like these, forums like this are very important in us sharing ideas, like you're saying, researchers from all over the globe coming and sharing their challenges and lessons learned. And then when we go back, we try to bring about those solutions in our own contexts. So I think it's equally important no matter where you come from. And also I feel like in other countries like, well, in South Africa, we also, now, I mean, we have other forums, apart from these conferences, we have the G20 now, we have all these international forums that are bringing these issues up, and we are able to take them home. And also, I feel like maybe for countries like ours, we also need to start, we need to push for STEM education at an early age. So we need to have STEM education sort of like ingrained in our school curriculum. Like, so we start introducing this concept from a very basic level. And then this puts us on a pathway towards developing, producing more STEM graduates who are able to deal with issues of data privacy, prevent cybersecurity risks, and also manage data centers. So I feel like that is one way of putting it, apart from the research that we all speak about, but those are some of the more practical, actionable things that we can also invest in, yeah.
And I think this is where Robert Schuman Center is very well placed to make sure that we create this bridge between the research communities in Europe, but also in the African context in this specifically. Masutane, thank you very much for the chat, and we'll continue the discussion. Thank you for watching us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.